Hey guys, I'm back again. Yeah, it's me, Vortex VGC, here with a solo queue tier list. So, yeah, you know, this is a tier list specifically for if you play Pokemon Unite without any friends, like me, alone and sad. So for all you lonely, sad individuals, this is the place for you. So, I'm just going to go over the tiers, pretty self-explanatory. Free Master Rank means, they're self-sufficient, very viable, great, good, average, and bad. Same as any tier list, but I first want to go over a few things about what makes a Pokemon good when you're solo queuing, and I think the number one thing, the one thing you have to know, is self-sustainability. A Pokemon that doesn't need support from others to do its job will be infinitely better than one that relies on your teammates, which in this case will be random people, which you don't want to rely on. So starting off, Absol. Okay, I think I'm going to put Absol in the... I feel like either great or good. I'm going to go with great on Absol, and I know that's a bit controversial, but I definitely think it's the right play. Absol, again, very good mobility, amazing damage, and you can really just go in the jungle, do whatever, and win the game that way. So I will always advocate for picking Absol. If you need a... Sorry, messing with the screen a little. If you need a good way to, win a game, Absol's definitely a great pick for you. And I would always recommend picking Absol in pretty much any scenario. Okay, moving on. Let's see. Alolan Ninetales, for me, goes in average. Here's why. Alolan Ninetales just does not have the damage necessary to compete with other attackers. I mean, it's better more as a stunner, as a supporter, and that's not a good trait you want if you are using a Pokemon like Alolan Ninetales in solo queue, so I don't recommend it. Blissy. Blissy should honestly be in its own tier, but yeah, by far the worst Pokemon to possibly bring if you're solo queuing. Blissey completely relies on your other teammates, and that's a terrible, terrible thing to do if you're in solo queue. So I do not recommend picking Blissey at all. I mean, Blissey is very, very strong in a good team comp with people you're communicating with. Moves like Helping Hand, Safeguard, Soft Boiled. They're very powerful, very strong moves, but they only can really be used if you trust teammates to carry the game for you. And that's something I don't really advocate for, especially in solo queue. Okay, Charizard. Ooh, Charizard. That's an intriguing one. Charizard, to me, is probably good, maybe great, but it could also be just average. Here's the problems with Charizard. Let's explain them. One, you have low damage output. That's not something you ever want to have as Charizard. Number two, Charizard has low damage output. I said that already, but that's just to emphasize the point. Charizard just doesn't have the damage of all-rounders, and it doesn't have that great of crowd control either. There's so many better options, as we'll get into. So Charizard, for me, yeah, sure, it's fine, but I wouldn't consider it great. Okay, yeah. Moving on, Cinderace. Cinderace is in kind of a weird spot. So I feel like Cinderace has a lot of things going for it, and then again, a lot of things not. For example, Cinderace, great auto attack damage, and pretty good mobility. Although it's rather squishy, you can basically function like a speedster with a bit lower damage output. So for me, Cinderace goes in the great tier. Yeah, I feel like that's fair because, again, Cinderace would be nice to have a tank in front of you, like Snorlax or Crustle to protect you, but you don't necessarily need it. Although it's not sufficient enough, to bump it into the next tier of free master rank, which is the best of the best. Cramorant. I really hate to do this to my guy, but I really think Cramorant is not... Oh, what happened there? Sorry about that. I really don't think Cramorant is all that viable. Unite move just doesn't do enough damage. And again, you'll see the higher meta Pokemon will do better than the ones at the bottom, and that kind of ties into solo queue, which there's less of an organized meta, so it doesn't matter that much, but still, I definitely feel like Cramorant suffers from lack of mobility, lack of survivability, but its Unite move is still a great zoning tool, and it hits like a truck. So I think it's our first good tier Pokemon. Definitely can struggle at some stages, but you should be overall fine. Okay, Crustle. I think without a doubt that Crustle is it's one of these two. I'm going to put it in great. Crustle is the best... Well, actually, nah. Crustle is the second best defender to pick if you're solo queuing. Because A, Crustle can do damage, Crustle can survive, and Crustle can zone. Those are three very important things for really any tank to do. And Crustle, I believe, fills its role effectively, and Swarm is a great ability. Its Unite move is busted. Like, I think it's really, really underrated how much chip damage and how much health you have with it. Pop a Buddy Barrier, score shield, and probably attack weight, and you can just score infinite goals with no one the wiser. Eldegoss suffers from the same problem as Blissy. You can't carry the game as Eldegoss. It just doesn't happen. And, you know, Eldegoss has a bit more offense, but not a whole lot. I mean, your most damaging move is Leaf Tornado, which is not powerful enough to win you the game. You know, again, great support options, great healing, great shields, great utility, but you can only really maximize Eldegoss's potential if you're with a 4 or maybe 5 stack. That's the way you get the most value out of Eldegoss. Again, this was a normal tier list. Eldegoss is S tier any day of the week. I think Eldegoss is one of the best Pokemon in the game, but for solo queue specifically, it just doesn't do what's needed. Garchomp is weird, because I think it suffers from the fact that, like Charizard, it's an all-rounder, and there are so many good all-rounders. Like, it's not even fair, really. But Garchomp does have good mobility and good damage, and that's important. Although, such a terrible early game, although they did buff him. So, I think for that reason, I'm sorry, not Charizard. Garchomp goes above Charizard into the good tier. Ooh boy. Gardevoir. In my opinion, Gardevoir is one of the worst Pokemon in the game. I don't think that anyone's going to hate on me for that. It just has no survivability, a terrible early game, and it's great in the late game. It's busted in the late game, but you're basically useless for pretty much half the game, and that's not the hallmark of a high-tier Pokemon. However, if you can jungle, or if you can win fights early on lane, get that level advantage, and that can really easily snowball into a win for you. So I'm actually going to put Gardevoir in good tier. I definitely think it's a very solid option. Gengar, free master rank. I mean, it does what Absol does, but better. Because of the lifesteal buff, this thing's broken in solo queue. You can basically go up against 2 or 3 Pokemon, click Hex and Sludge Bomb, and just delete them while healing yourself in the process. Amazing mobility, amazing escape options with its Unite move. Pretty much infinite damage. It's the hallmark of a great solo queue Pokemon. It's not as good when you're playing in like actual teams with 5 stacks, but you can exploit, you know, Gengar's an assassin, and you can very easily exploit the lack of communication between teammates to very easily win a game with Gengar. Absolutely free Master Rank. Greninja, I think, is same as Cinderace and Absol. Great damage, but just doesn't have that X factor for me. Like, it's very solid, yes, it has good enough survivability, but it just doesn't have something that makes it busted to get it into free Master Rank. So that's where I stand on Greninja. It has very strong moves, very good evasion, but it just feels a bit underwhelming. Like, yeah, you know it's good, but it sometimes fails to live up to expectations, especially if you're underleveled. It's very hard to come back with Greninja, and that's where I stand on it. Okay, Lucario. He needs no introduction. Prior to Sarina was the best Pokemon in the game, still is probably top 3 or 4, free Master Rank. Like, Bone Rush, Extreme Speed, even Power Up Punch and Close Combat, all of his moves do great damage, great mobility, amazing survivability with Steadfast and Focus Band, Score Shield and Attack Weight, or Score Shield and Muscle Band, and you can pretty much carry bottom lane all by yourself. You can solo Dreadnought, you can basically duel nearly any character you want, any Pokemon, so yeah, free Master Rank. I don't think this needs any debate. And what happened again? Awesome, that'll just happen. Great. Machamp. So unfortunately, Machamp is very good at single target killing, which you might think will make it good, but it struggles with initiating and escape. I talked about it in my last Pokemon Unite tier list, and I think it still has the same problems of just being, yes, an absolute powerhouse of damage, but gap closing is very hard, and because the meta is so special attack and mobility focused, I feel like Machamp can suffer without enough team support, so also, there's other better all-rounders, so that's why it goes in good. Yes, it's completely viable, but why? Why would you play it when you have Lucario? And I'll discuss the other options. Mr. Mime. Probably one of the top 2 supports. I mean, you already knew that. But it's a support that does so much damage, so much crowd control. You can either choose Barrier and Psychic and Stun and Wall Off for days, or Guard Swap and Confusion and just do 50% of a Pokemon's HP in one hit. It offers great team utility, but still has enough to where it can completely function on its own. So for that reason, I think it's either great or free mastering. I'm going to put it in great because there are other Pokemon that do what it does better. And yeah, Pikachu, I think goes in good tier. You see, Pikachu has the problem, we'll see this with other Pokemon, with not enough mobility and not enough survivability. And it's very hard without a defender or without a team to support you to get off all of your stuns and your damage. It hits like a truck and has great stuns, but if you're caught out in the open in a 1v1, you will pretty much lose as soon as they close the gap on you. And again, it's a very strong Pokemon. I'd rate it highly on a normal tier list, but solo queue is not normal. So that's where I stand on it personally. Okay, let's see. Slowbro. A brother who is slow is bad for solo queue. I don't have to explain this much. You sit there with telekinesis and surf, stun things for like 4 seconds straight, and then do nothing. You're a damage sponge, and on a team, on a coordinated team, taking opponents out of the fight with telekinesis and surf and getting those stuns is very, very valuable. But again, you don't have much of a team here in solo queue, so I don't think it's a good option. It might be bumped up to average, but nah, for the time being, it just doesn't do enough damage to justify its role as an initiator and stunner. Snorlax suffers the same problem, but to a lesser extent. Snorlax is a very high tier on a normal tier list. I don't think I have to tell you that. And it definitely has a lot of things going for it. Block and Heavy Slam can shut down a lane if it wants to. And that's a very, very powerful ability. But nonetheless, I believe Snorlax actually goes one tier above Slowbro and average. Here's why. First of all, as Snorlax, I see a lot of Snorlax players in solo queue struggle to find enough XP and to get their teammates to support them because Snorlax wants to be on the front lines. But it's useless if Snorlax goes up there and blocks, and he's blocking no one but himself. It's not useful. You get value out of Snorlax by protecting your teammates, but what if your teammates aren't there to be protected? What if they don't want that? And so it's very frustrating to play Snorlax in solo queue and be like, hi, I'm contesting this objective with Heavy Slam and Block, where's my team? And the thing is, it can back up its damage somewhat with Heavy Slam. You can even go for Yawn and Flail for more offensive Snorlax. But still, it's not an ideal option. Defenders definitely aren't great for solo queue. Except for Crustle and then another one. Talonflame. Nah, I'm going with great tier on Talonflame. Here is why. Talonflame has a lot of good things going for it. For example, Talonflame can very, very easily just shut down a lane using, what's it called? Is it Flare Blitz or... No, Brave Bird, my bad. Brave Bird and Aerial Ace to just do a lot of damage to a lot of targets at once. And it plays a lot like Gengar, but has less of that survivability, less of that X factor that I think holds it back from being a free win. However, our next three, maybe four, I think I'll go in free master rank for good reasons. Venusaur. Okay, let's talk about Venusaur. They nerfed Petal Dance and Giga Drain. It's still the most viable set. I mean, you can walk into another enemy team as an attacker, which are supposed to be frail, click Petal Dance, keep clicking Giga Drain, and just live and do a whole lot of damage. It's not fair. It's a lot like Lucario, but it's less combo-oriented, and Petal Dance and Giga Drain takes very, very little skill to pull off. So, let's see. Let's go over. High damage, easy to play, great survivability, instant free master rank for me. Same with Wigglytuff, and I know this might surprise a lot of you, but Wigglytuff on its own can be very oppressive for support with Sing and Dazzling Gleam, or even Double Slap, I believe. Yes, that's its set. With Score Shield and Buddy Barrier, your Unite move is amazing for big team fights. And even though those happen less, it's great as an escape tool. And you can basically just walk up, click Sing, score, walk away, no damage. It's a very busted Pokemon, one of the top 5 in the game in the regular meta. So I believe that is why Wigglytuff deserves a high spot. Zeraora, I mean, it's basically just a physical Gengar. Great mobility, probably even better than Gengar's. Slightly less damage, but still completely adequate amounts of damage are coming from Zeraora in any fight. You can use Discharge and Spark to just hop into a team and kill them in like 3-4 seconds. Or Wild Charge to delete a single target. It's insane what you can do. The best jungler in the game, in my opinion. Like, just everything about Zeraora screams jungler, screams assassin. Even more of an extent with Gengar, because Zeraora has one thing that Gengar doesn't. Although lower damage, Zeraora has a passable early game, with Slash being a very good move, Agility for good mobility. So with all that, good early game, pretty easy to play. I think Zeraora is definitely a free master rank. Okay, Blastoise. This is an interesting one. I like Blastoise for a lot of reasons, and I'm gonna actually... I don't know. Why does that keep doing that? I don't know why that keeps going like that. Okay. Sorry about that. Referring to Blastoise, I definitely think it has a lot of things going for it. Blastoise, again, has great damage and great crowd control. It's a lot like Wigglytuff, but even tankier. It takes all of the defensive attributes of Wigglytuff and Crustle, just tanks it up to 10. Takes it up to 10, sorry. It just tanks damage so well. Absurd defense, insane bulk, great mobility with Rapid Spin or Surf, and it's just unstoppable. If you want to go somewhere, the enemy team cannot stop you, and for that reason, I think it's got to be in Free Master rank. And then there's Mamoswine. Okay. Mamoswine's a bit weird. I hardly have any experience with the Pokemon, so this might be my bias due to lack of experience, but I personally just think Mamoswine's a worse Blastoise or a worse Crustle. It's a good Pokemon, yes. It's a great initiator, but it suffers from what a lot of Pokemon in the good tier have, and it's just other Pokemon can... Why does that keep doing that? I'm sorry. Other Pokemon can solo queue better than you can. And to me, that's not the hallmark of anything other than, yeah, it's good. Okay, moving on. Sylveon. With all of the nerfs? Oh, wow. This is actually a pretty hard placement. I'm gonna place it in Great, but that could easily move. Because, let me think about this. Sylveon has pretty good survivability, great damage with Hyper Voice or Calm Mind or Mystical Fire and Draining Kiss, the ability to shut down other Pokemon, but I think what keeps it out of S tier or Free Master rank tier is that it just, again, it suffers from other Pokemon do its job better, and I think that's a problem for it. So, yeah, that's where I'm going to put Sylveon. Alright, sorry, I keep messing with the setup, it's really weird. Alright, let's see, Greedent. Greedent was busted, then they made it a lot less busted. I think Greedent isn't as viable as it used to be. It feels really, really, really janky to use. It's probably the hardest Pokemon to play. It just has such a hard moveset to learn. And if you're trying to solo queue, you're better off investing your time in a Pokemon with a lower skill floor. Again, this is kind of a half noob, half solo queue tier list, I guess. But you'll see all the top picks have, except for Lucario, have pretty straightforward gameplay. And, like, with Green, there's so many interactions, so many mechanics you have to memorize and learn. And it also just does what Crustle and Blastoise do, but to a lesser extent. Again, it has great survivability, but I put it somewhere between Snorlax and Blastoise. It's kind of like a hybrid between those two. Great displacement and great survivability. But the fact that it doesn't excel at either of those makes it a good deal lower than Blastoise. Okay, yeah, I feel like that's fair. Decidueye. Personally, I hate Decidueye. I think it's a brain-dead Pokemon, brain-dead character. I hate the way this thing plays. It just... You know, you use your moves and then you spam A and things die. Or they don't and you die. You know, it's a pretty brain-dead character in my opinion, and I'm actually a bit of personal bias here, but it's my tier list, so if you don't like it, tell me why in the comments. Please comment. I need more comments. Alright, yeah. Decidueye, it would be great. It would be busted if it had some kind of way to not die instantly. It is the frailest character in the game. Like, you're basically one-shot by any other Pokemon that gets near you. And without a solid defender, it's like Pikachu, but worse, because Pikachu at least has some stuns that it can use to escape. Decidueye doesn't have any of that. Decidueye chips away at its opponents over time, which is great in the middle of a long, drawn-out team fight, But in solo queue, team fights happen like that, you know? Sorry if that snap was loud, I don't know. Yeah. It just doesn't seem to me like it does enough to justify putting it any higher than where I've put it in average tier. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, may I introduce you to the only reason I have gotten to Master Rank. Bum bum bum, Serena. If there was a tier above free Master Rank, like, they pay you money to get in Master Rank, that'd be where Serena is. It's broken. Probably, in my opinion at least, the most broken character they have ever introduced in the history of Pokemon Unite. This thing is a monster. And it does everything that Lucario does and turns that up to 11.5. It has amazing damage, amazing combos, stuns, knockbacks, self-healing, the ability to give itself a shield, good natural attack, good natural survivability, a great Unite move, a great late game, I'm running out of fingers here, you know? It has so many upsides and so few downsides, and the only real downside is you're pretty much useless until level 6. Oh yeah, they made this Pokemon evolve at level 6, by the way. That was a smart decision. If it evolved at level 7, then yeah, it'd be pretty garbage, but because of its early evolution, and once you get to level 6, you can win the game, I think this thing deserves to be in a tier of its own. But for now, we'll put it in free Master Rank. And yeah, Serena. If you want to get into Master Rank, play Serena. It's what I did. I just put in several hours on Serena, and the next thing you know, I'm in Master Rank. I don't know how it happened either. So now, we're concluding this tier list with Dragonite. I really don't know what to think about Dragonite, honestly. It's weird. It feels like a defender almost, but not. It has pretty good bulk, pretty good mobility, and great offensive power, but I don't really know how to describe it. On paper, it should be broken, it should be busted, but it isn't. I don't know how to describe it. It's such a weird Pokemon in the way it plays. You have to be managing cooldowns pretty effectively, but then again, such great basic attack damage with Dragon Dance boost. Hyper Beam does a lot of damage. Outrage does even more damage. I think I've got to put this in great. Yeah. Yeah, I think I do. Alright, final thoughts. Am I gonna move anything? Um, actually, yes. I am going to move one thing. I think I'm gonna kick Blastoise out of free Master Rank tier and put it, let's see, it should be like somewhere there. There. It just, Blastoise, pre-nerf Blastoise, I would have instantly put with Serena in like God tier or whatever. But because they so badly nerfed the Unite move is still excellent, don't get me wrong on that. But it just doesn't feel as oppressive as some of the others. Because, like, with all of these Pokemon, they can walk up to an enemy player, or even 2 or 3, in a win, walk away, or score some goals, and then walk away. They just have so much sustainability, and Blastoise just doesn't have the damage anymore to compete with that. Let's see, anything else? I should probably have more Pokemon in the average tier, considering it's supposed to be average. I feel like I've been really kind to a few Pokemon, namely the ones in the free Master Rank tier. Okay, I'm actually going to make one change. I'm going to move Slowbro up a tier and bring Mamoswine... No, wait, nah. Let me think. I'm going to move Slowbro up a tier, and I think bring Mamoswine down into average. Yeah, I feel confident with that. Here's my reasoning. Slowbro does have its moments. It's a very powerful disabler, and Slowbro is naturally tanky, and I don't think it's fair to rate it lower than Snorlax because they basically are interchangeable on the solo queue tier list. Mamoswine, feels a lot like Charizard to me, and I think it definitely just can't compete with Blastoise, can't compete with Lucario. It gets bodied by pretty much everything. Again, it has great utility and great displacement, but other things have greater utility and greater displacement and greater damage. So it's not that it's a bad Pokemon. Nothing in the average tier is actually bad for solo queue. The average tier just means they don't have any specific things that really stand out. Good means they have a few. Great means they have a lot, but are lacking that X factor, and I don't think I have to explain free master rank. So yeah, I believe that's the tier list. Yeah, I'm happy with how that looks. Sorry if I was looking down the entire time, it's just the way the camera and my setup is. But I hope that will... Why does that keep doing that? I am so sorry. Why? No, I don't want to get HBO Max. Anyway, sorry about that. I think I'm going to be good with that. So, yeah. That is my personal opinion on every Pokemon in Pokemon Unite.